I built like a prototype. So it just ran on my friend's computer. It was a command line tool that did it for him. And then I just went into a Slack channel where there were no code developers, and I asked them, like, would anybody find this useful? And like a bunch of people like said yes, absolutely. So then I started talking to them, like just getting on the phone with them and asking them how would they use it, how frequently would they use it, like what would they build.
The Indie Worldwide podcast. I'm your host Anthony, and we've got Mark LG here, founder of PowerImporter, aka the Judo hacker. How's it going, Mark?
Pretty well. Yourself?
Doing good. Better now that we're talking. So why don't you give us like a quick overview? What is PowerImporter? Who's your customer?
Sure. Yeah. It's a no-code tool for people who are using Webflow. So basically, I had a friend that was using Webflow, and he had a hard time getting his data into their CMS. So then I realized, like, there's probably a market for this. So like I built him a custom tool, and then I turned around to the community and asked them, is this something you would find useful? And then I started talking to people, and it took off right away.
What do you mean by the community?
So I'm hanging out in the no code community. So it's half. Some of them are agencies, so they're building websites for clients, and the other half are indie hackers like ourselves that are trying to build something but using no code tools instead of writing actual code.
I feel like I see a ton of that now in the no-code space, like people building no-code agencies and offering that as a service. I think that's really cool to see.
Yeah, and actually that's what I was thinking of doing at the very beginning. That was my idea. It was like, because my friend was trying to build something and he had all these questions, like, because I mean, no code is one thing, like it promises a lot, but you still have to make these decisions, like which tool to use. And then when you're actually building your CMS, you got to figure out how to structure your data. Like, so it's, it kind of like, it's on the border of like what a database administrator would do, right? Like data modeling and all that. And if you're not a technical, you don't know any of those terms.
How did you validate that your idea would be like sellable to other people, not just for this first friend / customer?
Well, I built like a prototype. So it just ran on my friend's computer. It was a command line tool that did it for him. And then I just went into a Slack channel where there were no code developers, and I asked them, like, would anybody find this useful? And like a bunch of people like said yes, absolutely. So then I started talking to them, like just getting on the phone with them and asking them how would they use it, how frequently would they use it, like what would they build.
So the problem you're solving is keeping Airtable synced up with Webflow?
Well, at the beginning, I was just trying to do a CSV import for Webflow. But so many people, like the tool didn't support a lot of things. It still doesn't today. But when I was talking to them, I realized that all of them were going to be exporting their data out of Airtable and then importing it as a CSV. Because, that's the only tool they knew existed that they could import using CSV. So that's when I realized, no, this is a much better idea because it's guaranteed to be recurring revenue because, they're going to want to continuously sync. So that was the first prototype that I built. That was my MVP.
The command line tool.
No, sorry, the Airtable to Webflow sync.
Okay. So the first thing you built, I guess, was the command line tool for your friend / customer, right? And then from there, it was what do most people need? Actually, they are going to be exporting from Airtable, so let's build a straight Airtable to Webflow connection.
Right. Yeah. My goal was never to sell a command line tool. I knew that wouldn't work for non-technical people. But it just proved that I could do it using the Webflow API. Like I was able to update it. So the question was, are other people having the same problem that he's having? and are they willing to pay? And when I was talking to people, everyone was saying they were willing to pay. So then I put up a landing page and started collecting more signups and then interviewing more people.
It seems surprising they didn't already have, like Webflow didn't already have an option to sync with their most popular, probably their most popular backend, right? Do you fear them adding your product as a feature in the future?
Of course, that's the reality with platform risk. Like, they could, but from what I've seen so far, like, because they do publicize their roadmap, like that doesn't seem to be anywhere on their roadmap. Like they're really concentrating on maybe adding membership features and improving the performance. So integrating with third parties, I don't know. There's such a huge ecosystem, and it keeps growing because there are more and more no-code tools every day. I don't think they're going to spend much time in that.
It would make sense that they'd be more focused on eating like MemberStack's lunch. It seems like there's a lot more money there at their scale to be the payments processor for their customers as well as their platform.
Exactly. And they sort of have to do it already because they have an e-commerce platform now. So most people that buy stuff online expect, to create an account, and then the site remembers you and you can go look at the status of your order. You can download invoices.
I didn't realize
so it seems like
gone down the e-commerce route. So they're competing with like Shopify and Wix and those guys.
Yeah,
now.
Exactly.
I remember when we talked about how you were getting your initial users, you had a pretty interesting strategy, right? You were looking for forum posts and things and then being quick on the response. Can you talk a bit about that system?
Yeah, it's a system that I've used for other products too that really works well. I mean, in this case, I'm solving a real problem. Like the alternative is people are using Zapier or other no-code tools to do the syncing, but it's very complicated. So they're always going to the forums asking for help. Like, how do I detect that something is modified, or Airtable has these kind of fields. How do I convert that into the proper format for Webflow? So it's really natural to just pipe in and say, well, you could do it this way, or you could use this solution here that works out of the box.
How do you see these posts?
I stalk the forums. So I haven't even really automated it yet. Basically, I have a folder of bookmarks, so then I just right click and say open in new tabs, and I just do that every morning, and it opens like 12 different tabs with all these different search queries that I've done. So I'm searching for people struggling with Zapier, with the API, with the CMS.
There's got to be tools out there to streamline that, right? And like do the scraping for you and surface potential hits.
Yeah, maybe. But, I mean, this works. So, every morning I just have to just right click on that folder and just open in new tabs. And then I just work on each tab.
How long do you think you spend doing that every day?
No more than an hour. So, I mean, sometimes it's nothing at all. Sometimes I go through them in 10 minutes and there's nothing worth answering. So I don't answer any questions. But then one day I'll maybe encounter like 3 different things to reply to.
Is this still the main source of new customers for you?
Yeah, it's like a third of my traffic is from the forum. Another third is SEO, and then the rest is direct traffic. So I have no idea where it's coming from.
Have you done anything in particular to win the SEO traffic?
Not much, really. I mean, I have specific landing pages for each tool that I've built. So the Airtable to Webflow sync and the CSV file upload. And now I've had a few more that I've added to try to see if there's demand for a WordPress integration or migration tool. And soon I'm going to be adding a Notion one. So my strategy has just been to make sure there's a landing page for those keywords early on, so that the SEO juices can start flowing, and then I can start testing if there's demand for it.
What's the Notion tool that you're building?
It's going to be the exact same thing as the Airtable one. So you'll be able to pick either documents or databases in Notion and have them synced up automatically with your Webflow CMS.
Nice. That's going to be super useful for a lot of folks. I feel like SEO is something I should have done with Indie Worldwide like 2 years ago. Like actually make more articles and landing pages and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Like what would be your content marketing strategy?
Yeah, so I want to do something scalable, right? Like writing articles sounds kind of boring to me, but I think I'm going to have to do at least some of that. Or I think if I could get a decent sized blog rolling with some okay-ish like readership, then I could convince people in the community to start writing articles to get featured there and go that way. But got to get the ball rolling first. I've always been trying to do just whatever I'm interested in doing that month so that it doesn't become a chore, because for communities, you got to be in it for the long haul. So it's always optimizing for not burning myself out on it and wanting to quit.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how you do it. It seems to be the fad now to start a community, but not many people do it as well as you do.
Oh, thanks, dude.
So
I mostly do it to meet folks like you. Just wanted to make friends online. And it's easier to make friends if you're actually talking to them synchronously than always asynchronously. Do you remember?
Yeah, well, that's why I don't know what the SEO strategy would be though for a community.
We could write articles about the things people search for when they're searching for communities, right? Like resources for indie hackers and bootstrappers. Anything that like an indie hacker might need is a potential like content funnel for us. So any product that has broad appeal to indie makers. Like Indie Hackers is a good example, right? Like they created an online forum, and so where we have people posting in our Slack, they have people posting in their forum, and then all that stuff gets scraped by the search engines and searchable, right? So they get huge SEO traffic through that. Really broad, like keyword coverage.
I guess so.
But
then, that doesn't make you different from indie hackers.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I haven't done it. They already did it.
Yeah.
We need to be our own thing, not just copy indie hackers or any of the other communities that are out there, for sure. Another interesting strategy I saw was from Hari, who made Visa List, and actually Peter Levels did this too, right? Where they just have an interesting data set and then automatically generate landing pages for different combinations from that data set. Right? So if you go to Visa List, it's like he's got data on every country's visa process, and then he can generate several landing pages about that. Peter Levels has interesting data points. He'll have like 20 data points on a city, which means he can cross that data in a number of ways and generate just like thousands, if not millions, of landing pages. And it has really good SEO traffic because of it.
Right.
I wonder if you could do something like you're already working with data. You could start collecting interesting data sets as well and start creating extra landing pages based off of that, or like directory of. You also have the ability to do portfolio sites, right? Like that seems like an easy one for you, is take your customers' sites and create like a showcase.
Yeah, that's what I want to do, is to have use cases, like case studies written by my customers. So it's an opportunity for them to show off what they built and any of the technical issues that PowerImporter solve for them would be good SEO.
Yeah, as well as awesome social proof, right? People land and see, oh, this worked for them, it can work for me. Especially once you get somebody who people look up to building on your tool, then they're like, that's the micro-influencer strategy, right?
Yeah, I find a lot of my customers, I think, are coming from referrals, like people referring the tool, but I'm not seeing any of it publicly. Like when I monitor Twitter or I monitor Slack channels, So I don't know where people are hanging out and telling people to use
It doesn't seem like the
PowerImporter.
kind of tool people would naturally like tweet about directly, right? They're more likely to, if they see somebody post a question, maybe they'll respond with, "This is how I solved it. I used PowerImporter."
Yeah. Part of me feels that the reason they don't do it publicly is they're almost ashamed that they're
Do you
using
think?
PowerImporter. Because the alternative is that you build something really
Mm.
complex in Zapier, and you could be proud of yourself. Wow, look what I built. I detect when something's new. I detect when
Mm.
something's modified. Like, as for PowerImporter, it's like, no, I just put in my API keys and I just mapped the fields and I was done. It's
People
like
take
it's
pride in
it's just,
simplicity in the no-code space too. I see people posting about all the time, kind of dunking on coders, right? They're like, "You spent a month to build what I could build in a day using no-code tools."
I know, I agree, but those people are most likely
Mm.
using cards for their landing pages, right? Like, just to show you, look, I just took a template that already existed, I plugged in Typeform here, and it's like I was done. As for me, they're
Mhm.
Webflow designers, so they take lots of pride in their designs, and I think this is sort of like a
Mm.
shortcut to use
Maybe
PowerImporter.
you can build your own case studies in that case. Like, oh, I'm going to create a marketplace app in like 10 minutes by using this. I'm going to buy this marketplace Webflow template, use this Airtable, and then with PowerImporter, they're automatically synced. Check me out.
Yeah, no, that's a great
And you
idea.
can do that like
Yeah,
infinite number of times, right? Any app that uses data,
right,
which is most of them.
exactly, which is most of them. Yeah, that's definitely something I've done a bit of
Hmm.
YouTube videos, and those have been useful and successful. Successful as in they bring in paying
Mm.
customers, not they don't make me internet
Paying
famous.
customers greater than internet fame.
Yeah, exactly.
Although you can definitely use one to get the other. With
Right.
uTool, something that I think is pretty cool is you could do something that seems really hard in no code, which is to generate pages based off of user content, right? Like if a user is submitting content that's going into an Airtable or even like a Google Sheet or something, with PowerImporter, you could then use that to pipe it back into Webflow and generate the pages. That seems like a cool use case that I don't know how you would do otherwise.
Right. Like those. I mean, I've seen people actually use it for SEO purposes. So in Airtable, they can have like a
Mm.
thousand different records, just variants way of describing the same problem, and then they just generate
Is
a
there a
bunch of
limit on how
pages.
many pages Webflow supports? Like how many unique pages?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it only supports 100 static
Mm.
pages that you can design, but then it has a CMS. So for every record in the CMS, it will generate a page based on your template that you give it. But that is limited to
10,000. That's
10,000.
actually a fairly low limit if you're trying to do a broad SEO play. So at that
Yeah,
point, you're just forced off of Webflow.
it is. And I mean, I see a lot of people in the forums complain about that limit. A lot of big Webflow fans say, no, don't worry about it. It'll be solved, soon.
That's a
But
pretty big
I don't
risk.
know. The
That's a
limit's
pretty
been
big
there a
platform
while.
risk if you're trying to do something
Yeah,
like Visa List or Nomad List or any of these like data crunching type sites. You just can't really, not right now.
yeah,
But yeah, that seems like a really interesting play for you, right? And something maybe you could do yourself as well. If you get people posting their own case studies, you can automatically update on your website using your own tool if you wanted to. Are you?
right. Yeah, my marketing site is actually not hosted on Webflow. I get a lot of grief from some Webflow
Yeah.
designers, but it's so much easier for me to just do it with Bootstrap and just write the HTML and the CSS
Yeah, this is the
myself.
thing about no code. If you're already a coder, then a lot of things are easier with code than with no code.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you see yourself building more tools on no code? Like, where are you trending? Are you building for no code, or are you planning to build with no code?
I mean, I do want to start using no code tools more because there's a sharp learning curve, and like you said, sometimes it's easier to just do it myself with HTML, but I can see the benefit of like just using someone else's template and easily putting something together. So I want to do it for, like you said, for demos, so just to show people, well, here I'm going to build a job board in 10 minutes, and it'll be all up and running and ready to. But I also think I should probably try to play around with it more to build other ideas that I have as MVPs.
I think that will be a good strategy for you, because it seems like in no code especially, people are looking for their exact solution to already be built out, so they can just kind of copy paste the packaging and put whatever they want to inside. Like if I go to MemberStack or MakerPad, there's a ton of this, right? It's like, let me build your exact app for you. Let me do this common template, and then you copy and build it.
Yeah.
It's maybe because there's so many different tools, it seems like people aren't really in a figure it out mindset. It's just like too many choices. It's much easier if somebody's already shown you a way that you know works. You can just take off the shelf. It's like off the shelf.
And
yeah.
With Webflow, with Webflow and Airtable, you can also clone your database or your website, so people can be up.
So you can create a bunch of these templates where people can just like 2 clicks and they're set up.
Yeah, that is the plan. Yeah, but otherwise, my strategy is to stay in the Webflow ecosystem.
Yeah, I've played with Webflow, but I haven't launched anything off of Webflow. It's kind of right on the edge of so complicated I might as well just code it. Like I think Bubble's kind of over that line as well for me. It's like basically I'm just relearning how to code in a new language, a visual language, if I use Bubble. So I might as well use the language I already know, JavaScript or Python or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, and hosting with Webflow is more expensive than hosting it
really
yourself.
Expensive.
Like, it has all these. Yeah, it is. So it's like, it seems it doesn't seem like the right solution for me. Like it's much simpler for me to write the HTML and then host it statically somewhere for like a fraction of the cost. But I mean, it would be actually a good marketing tool to build it with Webflow and use my PowerImporter tools to like, so that in the footer I can say it was built with Webflow and PowerImporter and Airtable.
Yeah, if you include that footer in the templates, a lot of people probably won't remove it, and then that's extra SEO juice for you.
That'd be nice.
I think a lot of people would just leave it. Free link juice.
Yeah, and I'm actually thinking of launching an affiliate program, so that would be another reason why they would leave the link.
How are you going to build the affiliate program?
So far, I just wrote it myself. Like I tried to use Rewardful, but I couldn't get the integration to work. And the other downside is they didn't have a sandbox. There was no way to like actually test it all. You sort of like put the integration in and then just hope that it works when you push it to production.
For anything no code, you gotta have some way to sandbox it, right? Because I don't trust anything until I've seen it work. Once it works, I'm happy to pay for it. Give me just like 10 free requests or something, just so I can prove that it works in turn to myself.
And Rewardful works on top of Stripe, and Stripe has an amazing sandbox. Like you could do absolutely everything. So like I was really surprised that they didn't have a way to plug into the Stripe sandbox.
And they just haven't gotten to it yet.
So yeah, in the end, I just decided, like all I really need is just tracking IDs. So find a way to like see when there's an ID in the URL, just track it in my database, and then when someone upgrades.
I saw a pretty funny tweet from, I think it was Noah Bragg, who makes Potion. His referral program was just like pretend. He would give people fake strings of numbers and letters and say, hey, you can use this to get your referral, but it didn't actually do anything. It was just, the input wasn't even read. It wasn't even sent to his backend. It was just there to make you feel happy. Any string of numbers would give you the discount. Literally any input at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it gave you a discount.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
No,
but he
that's a
didn't
good
actually bother
idea.
building the rest. He just assumed if you put anything in there, then it was probably fine. No real downside,
Cool.
and saves himself days of work, I guess. I thought that was pretty clever.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's it. Like all I coded was just tracking the IDs, but actually generating a report every month to know who I owe money to, I didn't write any of that yet. I'll get to that when the problem arises.
If it's only one-sided, right? If you're not paying anybody out, then you don't really have to build anything. But if you want to do the payouts, I don't know a way to get around actually building the thing.
Well, I mean, right now I just have to track who
You can use a
fucking-
spreadsheet, right? If everybody has a unique
But then-
code. That's what I do for Founders Club.
Yeah, exactly.
So a couple people have referral codes, and it's just a Google spreadsheet. It counts how many of those codes were used, and then if they're like an affiliate, then it calculates, okay, they owed like this much money. The Google Sheet is like the best backend for a lot of things. For me anyway,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah?
You can do so much on that. That's my backend for like a cafe website called Good Work Cafes. That's also the backend for Founders Club, and it's the backend for the 100-100 challenge. They're all just fancy Google Sheets.
Okay. I mean, I used to use Google Sheets exclusively, but not that I had to make an integration for Airtable. Like
I like Airtable more for data input than for data reading, because you can enforce types on Airtable, which is awesome if anybody else has to put in data. Like, if I want somebody to scrape data for me, a Loom video plus a Airtable with the types all defined is pretty much all I need, because they can't put in bad data or they can't put in data that's too bad. It has to at least kind of fit the format. But when it comes to transforming that data or like doing any kind of like calculations on it, I just cannot figure out Airtable for that.
Right. Like
Yeah,
the
they're
formulas.
so confusing to me. I don't know what I'm doing at all.
Yeah, they don't have as many also as Google Sheet.
I also find their API more limited and confusing. They're really trying to be a database, and yet not as good at it. For Google Sheets, it's super fast, really high limits, and I already wrote my like Google Sheets integration once, so I don't have to do it again. Getting it set up the first time is a little tricky.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. That's what I hate about it. Like, just give me an API key, like, easily, so I can.
You have to
start
do this
playing
whole
with it.
like dance
But no, you
where
have to,
you
like,
get a key, but then you
Yeah,
request
exactly.
a different like auth token, and then you download that. But once it's working, it's awfully nice. I can do all kinds of fancy things in Google Sheets. Like if you go to the 100 landing page, a lot of people have a logo attached to that, and that's using Google Sheets magic. Like there's a Google endpoint you can hit to get the fave icon for almost any URL, and then you can automatically import that to Google Sheets, and then you can automatically return that in the Google Sheets like API request. And so it was an easy way to get those, like pull all those in automatically. I didn't have to go search for them.
Nice.
And I have no idea how I would accomplish that in Airtable. I don't think it would be possible. But like the Google Sheets integration totally sucks. It's terrible, and it has like a huge like margin on it, and there's no way to get rid of the scroll bars. So the only way to actually make it look pretty was like a custom import, like a custom render, which ended up being really pretty and custom looking, but was also a pain in the butt.
Right.
Airtables is a little bit nicer, but also still looks like Airtable, and it's not really customizable.
No, exactly. It's okay because you could also display it as cards.
Yeah. Like that's what healthcare's dumb is, right? Healthcare's
Or a
dumb is just an
calendar.
Airtable, and that's fine for what it is. But for some reason, they both really like having scroll bars and like random padding when you scroll all the way over. I just want to be able to have like the rows locked in place, just display exactly what I want and nothing more.
Right.
But for some reason, they can't do that.
Well, that's why
There you
PowerImporter
go.
was invented.
See, solving my problem.
So you can have full control of how you. So now
Exactly.
you can exactly design how you want your
Full
Airtable data
circle.
to
We
appear.
brought it around. It's like the constant problem of anything no code is. I need my data to be pretty, and then I need to display it even prettier and custom. And there we go, PowerImporter. Check it out, PowerImporter.com.
Yeah.
And check out Mark at Judo Hacker on Twitter as well. Worth a follow. Personal endorsement.
Yeah.
And the podcast. What's the podcast called, and where can people find it?
Yeah, it's called Startup to Something, and it's at startuptosomething.com.
Startuptosomething.com. Check it out.
Yeah, and it's just another indie hacker, Matt, and I just doing a weekly review of what we're working on, next for
And
next week. It's basically
how
our
did you and Matt
mastermind.
meet?
Well, we both live in Montreal, so he runs the Montreal Indie Hacker Group,
I went to that once,
and
a couple times.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I met you. So that's how I met him, and then I guess at the end of last year he was like, "Hey, let's do a mastermind." So we started doing the mastermind, and then in January we're like, "Well, why aren't we just recording this and releasing it as a podcast?" So that's what
Nice.
we're doing.
All right, Mark, thanks for coming on.